Should local judges be allowed to solicit campaign contributions in those states that require them to run in elections for their offices? The Supreme Court took up that question this week, and at present it looks like they're divided on it. The particular case that they're debating involves Linnell Williams Yulee, who did solicit fundraising donations back in 2009 in an unsuccessful bid to get a position on the court in Florida. There's a law stopping them from doing that. He says that should be reversed. The Florida Supreme Court held up the ban, saying that it promoted the integrity of the judiciary and maintains the public's confidence in an impartial judiciary, to whatever extent we still believe that we have a fully impartial judiciary. He was forced to pay $1,860 in court costs. It has now gotten to the Supreme Court. Florida is not the only state that requires judicial elections. A total of 39 of 50 U.S. states actually elect local judges, unlike at the federal level where judges such as the Supreme Court justices are appointed for life. Of the states where elections are held, a total of 30, including Florida, ban judges from soliciting campaign funds.
So I have one argument to make on this, which is that if we acknowledge, as 30 of those 39 states have, that you can buy a judge who's deciding one case, why won't we acknowledge that you can buy a member of Congress, that you can buy a state legislator who can do far broader damage? Not singularly, but certainly, as we know, can push bills and can make far bigger things happen in many cases than a single judge.
See, Ben, that's why the court is in a conundrum here, right? Because they know it. They know in their guts that if you say, oh, you can give campaign donations to a judge, they're judges. They know, well, that means you're not really impartial. You just got $1 million from that guy. You're not impartial, right? Or whatever it might be, $10,000, $100,000. On the other hand, they have decided, as Ben pointed out, that if you give it to a politician, somehow they are impartial,
right?
Which is absurd. Yeah. So this case points out how absurd their earlier decision was.
But also how it doesn't really matter, because if you give it to the judge and the judge loses their partiality, then you take away the right for the state and the people, the populace of those states to elect their judges. You give it to the Congress people, well, then it doesn't matter, because they appoint the judge, and they can get as much money as they want during an election anyway. So if you're running for governor, I'm giving you $100, Cenk. Whatever, we'll go with 100.
Yeah, that'll work.
Yeah. You're going to
this.
Could you put this on? But you're going to. So I'm influencing you, and you're going to have sway over who the judge is.
That's why. Obviously, you shouldn't be allowed to buy either one of them.
Right.
Right. But
that makes sense, actually.
And to point out more of the internal logical contradictions here. Look, you have this issue of, okay, well, if they're elected, then are they part of the same process as we've been discussing here, right? But that goes to show you that maybe it's not such a good idea to elect judges. Because once you go into that, look, if we had public financing, right, and we didn't have the corruption of money in politics, et cetera, and you got Bob and you got Susie, and they're running for office, and they both have the same amount of money, and they say, one says, I'm going to hang them all. Right. The other says, hey, listen, let's be reasonable, or I'm going to let them all go, whatever it is. You have a choice, right?
Right.
But under this system, it seems like, okay, really? You're going to let ExxonMobil give a judge $100,000, and then ExxonMobil can have a case in front of the judge?
Yeah.
Really?
Right.
Really? Right.
And because of the nature of it, it's probably significantly easier to buy off a judge in races that aren't as contested. The fundraising amounts are much lower. It's just much cheaper. And
it's also easier to elect a judge with a lot of money. Because
exactly.
I've voted just about every. I think every election since I turned 18. Every time that there's a chance to go vote, I've voted. Even I, who pays pretty close attention to this stuff, when it gets to the judges.
Don't know.
Don't know.
The benefits of name recognition are significantly lower. There's no dynasty.
Sometimes Michael will take a judge, and I'll take the opposing judge, and we'll each take one, and we'll just bet on.
We'll bet on it.
We don't know.
That doesn't seem like a good idea either.
Yeah.
Yes,
it does.
But Michael makes a great point. And that's why it's easier to buy a senator from a small state than it is from a large state. In a large state, you got to spend a lot of money, like in California and Los Angeles, San Diego, San Francisco. These are big markets. Whereas Montana, you go and you're like, okay, here's $1 million. I bought every ad in the state, okay? And boom, that senator is now in my back pocket. So with judges, there's no name recognition. It's not like, unless a Clinton or a Bush is running for a judge, right? You don't know who the guys are. They're both Bob, what's his face?
Right.
So if somebody buys ads for one of them, it's going to give them an enormous advantage.
That's what the Koch brothers did in Kansas, and the rest of the Republicans in Kansas who weren't on the Koch slate were like, what just happened? I spent $3,700 on my ads last term, and these guys have $100,000 they're spending against me.
Yeah, and so if you allow for election of judges and then you allow for campaign contributions, I mean, that's it. We become a banana republic. You know, it's a wholesale purchase. The whole judiciary is up for auction.